Now that we've added the figures to the scene in the previous lesson, we've got a point of reference that gives scale and human context to our design presentation. We're at the final stages of our presentation process, so in this lesson what we're going to be doing is making some adjustments to the lighting and just a few minor tweaks to the geometry and materials here and there before we move to our final stage, which will be adjusting our output in the next lesson. So to begin with, what we need to do is just move this figure into the left and move this element here such that it becomes a burst out in the composition, and then we'll move on and adjust the lights themselves within the space. So double click on our rend view. We're just going to zoom out on our top viewport, select the geometry for our figure that's on the right hand side, and just make sure Snaps is disabled for the moment, and just simply left click and drag that figure just slightly behind. There we go. And back into the space there. It's all done. So that gives a sense of layering in the space. We can take that just a tiny bit further back. So we're just left clicking, keeping our eye on the perspective viewport until we get just the right position we need. That should be perfect at this stage. We can also turn off our con layer at this stage. So we've got our layer manager up there. Turn off our con layer. Now it's done the job that it needs to do. There we go. And we can now move this geometry a little bit further out. So we can see the screen, it on screen there with the save frames. We're just going to zoom out on that view just slightly. Select the geometry lying on the ground. We've got the correct one there. Keep it on. Now we want to drag it just to the left, just slightly, and slightly further forward. Move it up. So we're keeping an eye on the perspective viewport. There we go. Double click. See what that looks like on screen. It still needs to be moved to the left just slightly and a little bit further forward. So we're just going to zoom in on the top view, move it slightly further forward. There we go, so it's bigger in the shot. Then move it slightly to the left. There we go. Just click on the perspective space so you can see it with the save frame in place so we know where it renders out, and we're just fine tuning it until we get it in the location we need. Okay. That's looking fine. Let's just final check. Perfect. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we're going to isolate some of the lights in the space. So the green lights are all glowing at this stage, and they're glowing on all of the traffic lights at the same time. So we want to set some of those down such that we only have the main one glowing green here. We want amber on the right-hand side one here, the left-hand side one here, and we want it glowing red here. So there's a certain degree of variation in the design as we have our final rendering. So to start with, let's isolate our problem as we've done in the past. What we're working with is the light unit. There we go. Turn that on. We're going to select the lamps. So move down to the LU lamps bar, right click on that. Select objects. There you go, it's on screen there, and we can hide that out and swap it out as we've done previously. So we're just going to hide it, scroll underneath that command, swap it out. There we are. We can then double click on our rend view, and the ones that we're taking back to the original finish are everything other than that one there. So we can just select all of those items. There we go. And press the ungroup command until such time as they stop flashing. There we go. So you can see when we select, we're just selecting individual items, and we can change those materials using the selector on the mouse. There we go. That's fine. And we can allocate those materials via the V-Ray material editor to the material we've prepared previously. So what we'll be cutting that back to is it'll be just a simple green light rather than a glowing green light. So if you preview that, you can see it. It's the difference between that and that. So we just simply right click on the green light line and then apply material via selection. Okay. The next step that we want to do is allocate the amber lights to this light here and this light up here. In order to do that, we'll be working in the V-Ray material editor. We're going to take the existing amber light that we made for the top warning light and duplicate that. So right click, duplicate material. We'll call it glow light 2. So rename material. There we go. Amber light glow 2. Click OK. We're going to adjust its emissive to 50. It's already set at 50, which is fine. We're just going to adjust the reflection to 10. So we'll take that reflection up. There we go. Just preview that. We're ready to allocate that to those elements there. So I'm just going to move that material editor to one side, and the elements that we want to glow in that space is that one there and that one just there. Okay, well then we go back into the material, right click and apply material to selection. There we go. Now we've got the next process with the red light as well. So we're going to go down to the red light glow, check our settings. We're going to take our reflection on that item also up to 10. Confirm our multiplier. At this stage, it's going to be moved up to 30. There we go, just keyed it in. We can preview that, and we're going to allocate that to the other selection. So the other selector is the lowered traffic light in this position here. So we just want to select that, move our material editor into shot, right click, and then we're allocating material via selection. So I'm just going to move that material editor up just slightly and apply material to selection. Excellent. Okay, we can now activate everything back on screen again to show objects. So we simply right click on everything in the space. Now typically we group all of these together if we're going to be working on them continuously so that we don't bump geometry out of position. But for the purpose of the exercise at this stage, we'll just curtail that for the moment. The last thing that we want to do in this process is we're going to slightly adjust the reflective index of the hazard yellow. Currently it's a little bit dead from our previous test renders, so we're just going to go to our material editor, scroll down or just scroll through our elements. There we go. V-Ray Hazard Yellow is the base color we're working with. You can see there when we render it out, it's the very first color we created and it only has a diffuse layer. So we're going to add a reflective layer to that. So right click on that, create layer, scroll down to reflection, make sure it's in shot. You can see we've got the reflective index there. It's up on our side menu on the right hand side there. And we're going to change the reflection just up a small amount. I'll just preview it so you can see it on screen. We're going to increase that just to 2. There we go. We'll just preview that and you can see it's just a little bit sharper with the reflection. It's already allocated to the materials. I'm going to close off the material editor and we're going to pause there, and I'm just going to render a test render for everyone to see at this stage. Okay, you can see the test render there. And just to close off this lesson, what we've covered is we've just done some final tweaks to the geometry. So we've moved this element to the left, so it's got a breakout on the left-hand side of our composition. We've moved the background figures just so they're lapped in behind that lowered traffic light in the right-hand side. And then we've varied the light glows across the composition such that we have a glowing green light on our main element and a glowing amber light on the foreground element on the left and the midground element on the right. And conversely, we've done a red glow just to get the design variation there on this little traffic light in this location. So in our next lesson, we're going to do some final image adjustments and we should have everything completed.